sitting was down here. So we were looking up there and it looked like we were just looking up the screen.
Hi everybody, thanks for joining us today. My name is Vanessa. I am the moderator for today from Wimmera Southern Mallee, Len. I'd like to thank the Defence Force for coming along today and having a chat. Today's session is being moderated and recorded with strict adherence to privacy principles and standards and expectations. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners on all the different Aboriginal countries each of us is videoing in from today, and pay my respects to their elders past, present, and to any Aboriginal people who are joining us here today. So I'm going to hand over to the Defence Force. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Hey guys, thanks for joining us today. So we'll do a quick introduction before we get started. So I'll start. I'm Corporal Tim Jarvie. I've been in the Army for 8 years, going on 9 in July. I am what we call a warehouse assistant. So I look after everything from pens, pencils, all the way through to 84mm rockets and everything in between. So any military equipment you would have seen anywhere, I'm that dude that orders that stock in, issues that stock out, and then manages all the stock so we can achieve the commander's intent. My motivation for joining the Defence, so I'm a 4th generation serviceman, and also the youngest of 4 boys. All of us have joined the Army. So for me, it was a bit of family pride, wanting to, follow in my family's footsteps. And then I'm also a country boy, so serving the country for me was a big thing. And then lastly, I love keeping fit and playing a bit of sport, and doing a job where I can get paid to do that, I think was a big motivator for me. I'm sure you don't really want to hear about me all day, so I'll hand over to Matty. So
you sound pretty good at that. G'day guys, my name's Corporal Matthew Hadfield. I'm a corporal in the Royal Australian Air Force. My normal job role, when I'm not doing recruiting, is I'm a firefighter in the Air Force. So a day-to-day working routine for me is controlling and responding to any airfield incidents that we have on our air bases. So we're constantly being called out to aircraft emergencies, and I'm in charge of coordinating crews to respond to these as quick as possible. I've been in here for about 10.5 years. I've had multiple postings around Australia, so been lucky enough to experience some really good cities in Australia, and I've deployed twice to the Middle East on operations as well. So that to me has been really good. Working alongside guys like Tim and Navy personnel, as well as coalition forces, so militaries from around the world. Some of my best friends are in the Royal Air Force in the UK, and I get to, I guess I've maintained these friendships for a long time, so that's really cool. Getting to know people from all around the world that do the same job as me. I joined the Air Force primarily, again, like Tim, my great-grandfather served in World War One, which was on the first HMA Sydney. Learning about his service life and what he achieved was a big motivating factor for myself to join. Also, too, I wanted to stay fit. I wanted to play sport, and the Defence Force for me was the only, I guess, organisation that could offer that. And physical activity, along with a normal day-to-day role, was really attractive to me. I've got a solid career, my family's proud of me, and I've always got something new happening. So a day at work in the military generally doesn't feel like a day at work at all, if that makes sense. So I've been very, very lucky in that regard, and I couldn't recommend a career in defence highly enough.
So about the ADF, who we are. So primarily we are the Defence of Australia, so all of our borders. We also provide, hospitality. We've got to provide, protection of our borders, assistance with natural disasters, all that sort of thing. So like the bushfires that went on at the start of the year, we provide assistance for that. We also provide support to other government agencies or other international countries when they request that. So that is basically who we are. We're going to go through a little bit more detail on our benefits and sorts of things we can do, as well as the whole application process.
Yep, so there are quite a number of roles within the Australian Defence Force. There's actually over 260 job roles broken up between the 3 services. Okay, and as you can see there, they're all broken into different areas. Okay, so combat security roles like what I do as a firefighter, military police, airfield defence guards, infantry type roles, so those real soldier roles are in that. Aviation roles like being a pilot or aircrew, loadmaster, roles like that. Trades, you can become a plumber, an electrician, a technician, an electrician. We've got a few members here at the recruiting centre that are aircraft technicians. We have engineering roles, healthcare roles, logistics, hospitality and support roles like Tim's in, communication and IT, and business and administrative roles as well. So quite a few.
So there's two avenues of entry. So there's general entry and officer entry. Now, the analogy we like to use is think of a footy team. So you've got all your coaches, your team managers, physios, team trainers, everything like that. They're all your officers. So they come up with the tactics, all of the training schedule for the year, the actual game schedule. All those sorts of people are your officers. The general entry guys on the ground kicking the footy around the footy field are your other players, righto? So that's what we like to call general entry. So they're the ones actually trying to achieve what the mission is that the officers have come up with, which is obviously winning the game and all the tactics and techniques on the field. Everyone that has played footy understands that you do require leadership on the field, hence the reason us general entry guys get given rank. So we develop our leadership over time, and obviously we're on the ground making sure that we are achieving the mission that the officer has come up with so we can win that game. So they are also broken up into different categories, and we're going to cover off on those a little bit later. There is also the reserves and gap year, and they have the same different officer entry or general entry roles.
Okay, so to join the Australian Defence Force, you've got to meet certain requirements, education and identity. So educational requirements, if you're wanting to join as an officer, you need to have passed Year 12, English and 3 other tertiary subjects. So you needed to have passed well and achieved high scores. If you're looking at pilot roles, that's Year 12 English, Maths and 2 university entry level subjects. Engineer, Year 12 Maths, Advanced 2-unit Maths, Physics component, or Engineering Aviation Studies. To join as general entry, like myself and Tim, Year 10 Maths and English, you must pass to join. If you're looking at a trade role, so like those electricians or plumbers or aircraft technicians, you must have completed Year 10 Science on top of your Year 10 Maths and English. Okay. If you're looking at going to the Australian Defence Force Academy, you must have achieved a 75 to 85 ATAR score. Okay. The minimum age to apply is 16 years for ADFA, 16 and a half years for all other roles. And with all applicants, they must be Australian citizens.
So ADFA training. So ADFA, Australian Defence Force Academy. I believe personally this is one of the best academies in Australia, or best universities in Australia. A couple of reasons for that. One is when you actually go to university, you do, it's up to you, like a civilian university, it's up to you to what lectures you go to. So you can wake up in the morning, no, I don't feel like going to this lecture, you don't have to go. Whereas ADFA, you're getting paid to go to study or to your lectures. So you're made to go, which therefore means it's kind of, they're forcing you to pass. And the whole time, as I said, you are getting paid. So it's a fairly good wage. You can find out the exact figures on the defencejobs.gov.au website. It is through the University of New South Wales, so a top tier university in Australia. And it's one of the best student to teacher ratios in the country. So I think it's about 8 students to 1 lecturer. So it's really quite good. The other good thing is you have a guaranteed job at the end. Your only commitment is you must serve whatever you've been studying plus 1 year at the end. So if you go through 4 years, usually you'd be serving, so 4 years of study, you'd be serving 5 years post-study. So it'd be 9 years total in the Defence Force, but 4 of those years would be at the university. There's a couple of degrees there, or there's all the degrees that we offer, and their ATAR respective ATAR scores next to them. We are limited in the degrees we do offer, but there is other avenues for any other degree that you might consider that isn't listed there. That is the Defence University sponsorship. So that's more for those roles that aren't listed at ADFA, so things like nursing or legal. So if you want to do that, you complete your first 12 months of university at a civilian university. You apply for sponsorship, and then you can potentially get sponsored for the remainder of your degree. So they pay you while you're studying, they pay all of your uni fees, books, everything like that, and you get an income while you're doing it. So it's one of the best sponsorships in the country as well. And it is more for those jobs that we don't offer at ADFA. It is super competitive though, so you do need to be getting like highs or high distinctions to be competitive to get that sponsorship.
Yeah, so these are all the roles broken down in the technical general entry roles, okay? So you can see across the three services quite a range of different jobs there. You're looking at everything there from aviation technician on certain aircrafts or ships, right through to carpenter or a chef, plumber, vehicle mechanics, you name it, we can do it. If you're good with your hands and you're mechanically minded, there's a role for you, definitely. These are your gap year roles as well that we offer. The gap year programs are very competitive because they offer a 12-month commitment. So it's a good way of you getting a taste of the military without signing on for the normal 4 years, is what most roles have as that commitment period. So you can see the Navy, Army and Air Force. If you're looking at if you're interested in a Navy career, you can apply to be a Navy gap year sailor, and it's quite a popular one because you can try all the roles within the Navy, or a variety of roles. So instead of, say, with the Army and the Air Force focusing on one, so say infantry soldier in the Army or a cabin crew in the Air Force, you'll get to try a variety of roles in the Navy and travel out. You get to go out on the sea, you get to travel to different naval establishments around Australia, so you get quite a bit of travel with the Navy. If you are interested in a specific role in the Army or the Air Force, you can just do the gap year on that particular role, where your training is more focused around that role. But you'll get a good taste for it. And at the end of that 12 months, you'll get the option if you wanted to sign on for another amount of years, or you can just leave, no questions asked.
So fitness, this is a big one, and I'm going to cover off. I'm not going to insult your intelligence, you can read, but I will cover off on the Army standard for males because that is our highest standard. So 15 push-ups, 45 sit-ups, and 7.5 on the beep test. So 7.5 on the beep test roughly works out to be 1.1 kilometres in just under 7 minutes. So it's actually quite achievable when you think of it like that. Now, this fitness standard that we have is to mitigate the risk of you getting injured at basic training. It's not really a good fitness standard to aim for. We expect everyone to aim for at least 3 times the requirement for push-ups, at least 100 sit-ups, and the beep test, we generally ask everyone to aim for that 10.1 mark, which will make you, set you up for success when you actually are required to run the 2.4 kilometres once you're in service. So an example of why I say the 3 times, so the requirement for a male in the Army under age of 26 is 40 push-ups, 75 sit-ups, but you should be doing 100, and 2.4 kilometres in under 11 minutes 18. If your fitness isn't quite there at the moment, we do have a free fitness app, which is called the ADF Active. Now, I encourage you to download it for 3 reasons. First one, it has a free training program on there. Now, I had to swallow my pride there a little bit. A couple of months ago, I thought it was for people that had never been to the gym before and never done a workout in their life. So I thought I'd have a crack at some of the workouts when all this coronavirus stuff kicked off. Did a home workout with the app, did a 50-minute workout, and I almost spewed at the end of it, so I had to swallow my pride. It is a really good fitness app, and it's all body weight exercises. So push-ups, sit-ups, squats, lunges, burpees. You don't need anything other than that. Next thing, next really good reason to download it is it has the correct technique. We're quite strict with our push-ups and sit-ups. Both Matt and I run the assessments for the fitness test, and we're very strict with it. So if you're not coming down low enough on your push-ups, you may think you can do 15. You come to us and we'll give you 0. So that's something to have a look at and make sure you are doing that right technique. And the last thing is you can actually practice the fitness test. So you can gauge exactly where you're at when you come through the process. So when the question is asked, how do you think your fitness is going? You can say, I did the fitness test last week. This is what I did.
And aside from that too, it is handy. It's really good to be fit because it's less, I guess, once you get to your recruit establishment, you don't have to worry about the fitness part. It's less to worry about. You'll enjoy the recruitment phase a lot more. You'll get more from it. Okay, so this is the recruiting process as it is. So if you're interested in joining the ADF, you can apply online. Call 13 1901, and you can submit your application. You'll be then allocated to a U session where you'll get to speak to a careers coach like myself and Tim. You'll have to undergo aptitude testing prior to that to see what jobs you're eligible to apply for. Once you've spoken to us, we will give you instructions or some guidance in regards to what to do next in terms of getting documents into us. So we need to see that you've passed Year 10 Maths and English, etc., and that you meet the identity requirements needed. Okay, so you select your job preferences. You can start to research on defence jobs straight away from today to see what you're interested in. And when you, I guess, put in your application, you know what you're kind of focusing and what your goal is to what you want to do in the military. All right. From there, if you've selected a role that requires additional testing, you can sit that testing to see if you meet those standards. Once you've got all those documents in and you're happy with your knowledge, you know what you're applying for, you can then be booked in for an assessment day. On that assessment day, you will undertake a medical examination with the nurse. You'll do a psychological interview, okay, with a psych. Now, they will, I guess, find out whether mentally you're going to be a good fit for the Australian Defence Force, and if it's for you. You have your job interview, which will be with a defence interviewer, and they will ask you a range of questions regarding the jobs that you've chosen and the services, so the parent services like Army, Air Force or Navy, whatever you're applying for. Okay, questions could range from how long is your training, your military training initially, to where you could be posted to once you're qualified, to what your day-to-day job is, say, an infantry soldier, if that's what you've selected. What are your primary duties of an infantry soldier, and what are you going to expect throughout your career? Okay. From there, if you've done well with that and you've been deemed suitable, you'll get a letter of intent. So the Defence Forces intend to, you've gotten through, so they intend to employ you, and you just need to wait out then. Okay. If you're looking at officer entry, you'll need to sit an officer selection board, which is another, gate to get through. That selection board is based on a variety of leadership questions and what you can bring to the ADF as a leader. Okay, if you're deemed suitable or you get a recommendation, you've done well with that officer selection board, you'll come back into the line where you'll have to wait out for an enlistment or an appointment date as to when you'll be leaving to join the Australian Defence Force. But prior to that, you'll need to complete that pre-enlistment fitness assessment, which Tim just spoke about. Okay, that's 4 to 6 weeks before your enlistment or appointment date.
Righto, so a really important thing to assist with your application is stay connected. So best way to do that, defencejobs.gov.au. All of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So it's really, really important you tap into that. Now, I think personally the best way, best motivation for me coming into my assessment day was YouTube. So jumped on there, watched every single military video I could of, cool helicopters flying in, explosions, guns firing, all that sort of good stuff. That's what really interested me. And YouTube has all that stuff. So it kept me interested, as well as it had some good, valid information for me to take to my assessment day. The only thing I can say about that is, please, if you are going to be watching YouTube and videos like that, make sure you do back that information up off the Defence Jobs website, so you are getting the most up-to-date information. Now, that is the last slide. We'll go on to some questions now. I believe we've got some up at the top. I'll just open it up and have a look.
Yeah, we do. We've had quite a number of questions come through, so I'll read them out to you if that'll make it easier, and you can give it an answer. And I think with all these questions coming through, I'm going to learn a few things or two as well.
Yeah.
So the first question is do new infantry recruits undergo gas training and free fall training?
So they go through, they get gassed, Yes, and so they learn how to, put all your equipment on. They don't do, my understanding is you will do high ropes, or you will do high ropes course, and you'll do like, not fast roping, but you'll abseil off the side of a really tall platform. So you will do that stuff, but you won't do like free falling or anything like that, and you will get gassed. Yes.
Awesome. Now, when you first joined the Defence Force, what are the living conditions like for someone looking at becoming an air-based protection and security personnel or a four-wheel drive recoverist?
Yeah, so living conditions, you'll get a choice. So once you've completed all your military training, you'll then be assigned to your employment training area base, which would most likely be RAF base Mallee up near Ipswich, the Brisbane, southeast Queensland region. So that's got accommodation on base, which is quite good. It's quite new. I believe it was built around 2010. So you'll get your own room there, one bedroom studio type apartment with a little kitchenette, and your own ensuite. The living in accommodation on that base is quite good. So if that's the job that you're looking at, I'd say you'd be going to RAF base Mallee.
Terrific. And on to the next one. Do we go through less years in the Defence School if we've been in the cadets, like similar to the Navy cadets? Is there any time consideration there with prior learning?
No, so everyone will go through the same training. You can. There is the only time you might get recognition of prior learning is if you've done a trade, and you're, say, if you're a vehicle mechanic and you want to come in as a vehicle mechanic within the defence, there is certain components, of course, you can record prior learning. However, everyone still goes through the same initial military training.
Terrific. Now we're just going to go back to the gap year conversation here. Someone has asked if it's best to do the gap year before or just go straight in. And then someone has wondered what the pathway is following the gap year to get into the Defence Force if they'd like to continue.
Yeah, so just depending on the job role that you're looking at, we don't offer a gap year for all roles. So if you're hesitant about that initial period of service, so if you didn't want to sign on for 4 years, a gap year is a good way to get a bit of a taste. However, it's quite competitive, okay? So you might be looking at a bit longer of a wait to get on, whereas if you were to sign up just full-time straight off the bat, you might get into the military a lot quicker. So yeah, it just depends on personal circumstances and what job role that you're looking at.
And at the completion of gap year, you get the choice. So for Army and Air Force, you get to the choice on whether you want to stay on and just continue on your military career, or whether you want to discharge and go active, or go move into active reserves. And you have to stay active reserves for 5 years before you can completely separate from defence. So that is the option for Army Air Force. For Navy, if you decide you want to stay on, you then get to choose which mustering you go. And then if you are successful with that, you can then move on to the initial employment training for that muster, and then go and complete that training and post to a ship or wherever you may go after that.
Terrific. Now, another question here. Is it possible to join the Special Forces group as a civilian?
Yes. So you can join direct entry commandos. Now, the physical fitness requirement for commandos is a lot more difficult. So it is 10.1 on the beak test, 40 push-ups, it is 65 sit-ups and 6 heaves. Now, to be competitive for the fitness requirement, because it is a paperboard part of the commando selection, you do want to aim about that the 80 push-up mark. You want to be aiming for about the 12 on the beak test, 100 sit-ups, and a minimum 10 strict heaves. So heave is a chin-up. The other thing is the most successful candidates that we have for commandos, and the most successful to get through their commando training, are aged between 24 and 28, because they've got a bit of life experience and that sort of thing. However, it is open to everyone, but you just need to be prepared for that. Setting you up for success, you need to read a lot of motivational stuff and have a good understanding of what you're actually getting yourself in for.
Terrific. Now we have a young person here looking at joining the Army, and they'd just like to know what happens after Kapooka.
Yep, so you complete Kapooka, you march out, and then based off what job you choose, so be that infantry, combat engineers, could be a warehouse assistant, admin assistant, whatever that may be, you then go off to your initial employment training. They're located all throughout Australia. So School of Logistics, Army School of Logistics is in Albury-Wodonga. Our School of Infantry is in Singleton, so New South Wales. School of Engineering is in Holsworthy. So wherever your initial employment training may be, that's where you'll go. You'll do your minimum 3-month course usually, up to 2 years. So your electricians are about a 2-year course. You then post to your unit. So that could be for Army, Brisbane, Townsville, Darwin or Adelaide. And then the other services have got their base locations as well.
Terrific. Our next question is, what countries are soldiers currently deployed to?
So we've got Afghanistan, Iraq, Dubai, so UAE, United Arab Emirates. We have
Malaysia.
Yep, Malaysia. We've got people in Egypt, Syria, Lebanon.
Yes, Lebanon.
Yeah. So
Terrific.
there's quite a few
All over. Yeah.
Now, just being conscious of time for our attendees to note, we will try and move through these questions as quickly as we can, but we may not get to them all. So just referring back to that Defence Jobs screen there for contact and for further information, please head to there if you need to. Next question up, do most of your jobs start recruiting at the end of financial year?
So new jobs come available, or new vacancies become available every financial year. So the services will come out at the end of financial year and be like, this is the amount of positions that we want for the next 12 months. And then we do that. So we have over 260 jobs within the Defence Force, and we're not recruiting for every single one of those jobs right now. A perfect example of that is Air Force firefighters. Once you get in, no one wants to get out because it's such a good job. So we don't recruit for that job all the time. So if there's something going on, so say we've had a massive, change of staff or whatever for infantry soldier, we may end up having 150 positions become available, and we'll be recruiting for that.
Does having a hearing impairment impact on becoming a soldier?
That is something you would have to discuss with the medical staff. So when you come through the recruiting process, you do have to complete some medical forms, and you would have to discuss it with them, and they'd let you know the limitations. We do have to sit a hearing test. However, that is something you would have to discuss with the medical staff.
Terrific. And how old do you have to be to go to the gap year?
It's between 17 and 24. 18 and 24, sorry. 18 and 24.
Great.
And you have to have completed year 12.
Yeah.
Is there pathways to get into a role like a pilot if someone doesn't meet the math prerequisites at high school?
So there is some education. You can do adult learning. So you will have to complete that year 10 level mathematics for the mathematics requirement. So the Defence Jobs updates all the time and lets you know what the education requirements are. There is adult learning that you would have to complete before going through, or if you complete university studies, that can also, we can use that to translate across. But if you haven't met the required standard at school, you would have to complete further studies.
Now, we've had a couple of questions come through regarding female participation in the Defence Force. So I'm just going to leave that open-ended because there's quite a different. Are you getting quite a number of women joining these days?
Yes, most certainly, yeah. Defence Force is wanting as many female applicants as we can get. I'll use my job role as an example. When I joined a bit over 10 years ago, there was only 2 female firefighters. Now there's well over 30. We only have a small, I guess, mustering is what we call it. So small. There's not many Air Force firefighters. About 200, 250. So there's quite a big makeup of that total number that are female. So Defence is looking at doing that across the board. So most definitely, yeah.
Terrific. And does going to the ADFA limit career options?
Not at all. So if you're going, depending on what service you are choosing, so if you decide Army, you go through you choose your degree, and then you'll go to Royal Military College Duntrue. You then complete 12 months at Royal Military College Duntrue, and they then allocate you what job that you will be doing once you complete your course, and that is based off how you performed through the 12 months. So obviously, if you're wanting to go infantry soldier, they are our primary tacticians, or our combat corps, so cavalry, infantry, combat engineers. They're our primary tacticians and warfighters. So you need to perform well in the tactics phase. Whereas if you more perform well in, you know, the administration sort of area, then you'll more likely get posted to those sort of roles. So we have our strengths where we want them.
Yeah, terrific.
Rather than everyone getting their first preference.
Fantastic. Now that we have reached the end of the webinar, so for anyone who needs to jump into another one, please feel free to leave us. But if I can just run another 2 questions by you before we all have to go. Can we choose where to get deployed?
You can't choose. You can put your, once you're in, you've done a few years, you can put your hand up for different deployments if the opportunity is available, but you can't pick and choose which areas you go.
So for Army, you have to be nominated for a deployment. So we don't get a say in our deployments. It will be like, there is a deployment coming up, your name's been put forward, then you can decide whether you are going, if you would accept the nomination or whether you do not want to go overseas.
Terrific. And look, lucky last question. We've got a question here that reads, what can I do if I'm in a lower grade and want to join?
A lower grade at school?
Yes, I'm assuming that would be, they may be in, say, year 10 or 11,
Yep.
or perhaps studying, yeah, by distance or something along those lines.
Okay. So the only requirement is you must have at least a 50% mark in year 10 English and maths for general entry, and you have to be at least 16 and a half years old. Now, you have to be at least 17 years old to join. Now, if you want to complete school, by all means you can. If you want to go for officer, you have to have completed year 12. So whatever, like I finished school, I'm Queenslander, so I finished school at 17, whereas I know down here in Victoria, you finish school at 18. So as long as you meet the minimum education and age requirements, you can serve.
Terrific. Well, that brings us to the end of the presentation. So I'd just like to thank you both for coming along today to the Western Victorian Careers Expo, and to our attendees who have joined us today. Thank you.
No dramas. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.